Voters in Weston will be meeting at the Walker Farm this year for their annual March town meeting, not the Weston Playhouse where town meetings have traditionally been held. Last July, the Playhouse was severely damaged by the flooding that occurred there and in several other Vermont communities. So while the theater is being restored, the town meeting will move a short distance up Route 100 to the Walker Farm. The town meeting will start at 9 a.m. on Tuesday, March 5th, and Weston follows the traditional format where the warrant articles are discussed and voted off the floor. That includes voting for town officers. 2 select board members will be voted for, along with several other town officials. When it comes to the town budget, Weston's voters will be asked to approve a general fund budget of about $720,000, of which $466,611 will be raised by local taxes, with the rest coming from non-tax sources and a surplus left over from last year. Voters will also be asked to approve a highway fund budget of more than $955,000, of which a little more than $830,000 will be raised by taxes and the rest by non-tax revenues and an existing surplus. We met up with Weston's town clerk, Kim Seymour, and Select Board Vice Chairman Jim Linville for a further discussion about this year's town meeting in Weston.
So our tax assessment will be based on a 1.296 amount for taxes. It is a $47,000 increase over the budget for 23, which equates to a little less than 4% increase for the municipal portion. And part of that was there was a reduction in the tax amount for the general fund. The highway went a little higher than that, but the net is still a very respectable 4%, 3.7 actually. So we had a couple of special projects. We've increased some funding for the special funds, but overall the municipal portion is a almost level funding at 3%, if you ask me.
And then the municipal tax rate will stay roughly the same as last year?
Right. It was 0.6031 last year for the total municipal. And so we may see a few pennies on that, but it's not significant. It's not a huge increase. The ed is, of course, something entirely different. And we're waiting to have the shoe fall, along with everybody else in the state.
Does Weston have a town audit or an assessment scheduled for this year, or?
We have a reappraisal
That's
coming
what
up,
I meant.
and that is scheduled to start sometime in 24, with completion hopefully by 25. And that hasn't been done in a long time. We have a CLA of 78%, and of course that throws us into the reassessment pool. So that is contracted with a company named Patriot, and they have begun doing some of the preliminary work to get that ball rolling.
We also discussed the special articles that were on the warning.
Really, it's the town garage article, which is to authorize, where's that?
Number 5.
Right, to approve a 4-year loan not to exceed $375,000 for the addition of 2 bays in the town garage. And it should be approved, in my opinion. It's a very cost-effective.
Weston's planning for future flood resiliency measures is another topic likely to come up for discussion at the town meeting.
I'm sure there will be. It's not it's not an article, but there'll be conversation about it. We have we applied for and received a municipal technical assistance program, MTAP, grant for $50,000. We have just set up a flood resilience committee that reports to the select board to administrate that grant, and that will involve finding and retaining consultants to help guide us through the process, which at this point is it is not clear what that process is going to be, because there are some grants that have been applied for through Wyndham Regional to do the hydraulic analysis, and those grants, to my knowledge, as of now, have not been funded. And we've been pretty clear about what we're looking for, which is to analyze, first of all, to try to identify anything we can do to improve our resilience, which would include adding dams, removing dams, increasing culvert sizes, including the Lawrence Hill Bridge here. And after we go through that step, it becomes a problem of figuring out how you're going to afford to do each one of these programs. You got to go out and get, engineering costs and see what the ROI is, and we just don't know, and there's so much uncertainty on that side, and there's also, as we were saying before, there's this uncertainty about whether the July storm was a 5-month storm or a 25-year storm, and that's unknowable. We don't know.
Town Clerk Kim Seymour added one final thought for Weston's residents to consider.
I'd like people to step up. I'd like them to start realizing that just coming together to help during a crisis for the flood is wonderful, but not enough. And we have so many boards and commissions that don't have adequate number of members. And you can't run a town on just crisis management. You need day-to-day management. And people have to step up. We are mostly volunteers. And without them, we can't run a town. And I don't think people really understand that. I think everybody gets caught up in their day-to-day, which is totally understandable. But this state runs its villages on these towns' boards and commissions, and many are mostly volunteers. And we need more people.
And to which I would add that and we were talking about this earlier, that the job of being a select person or a member of the Development Review Board or the Planning Commission, or now the resilience flood resilience committee, these jobs, we keep getting, I hate to use this word, but basically unfunded mandates from Montpelier, making our jobs more complicated, making compliance more and more difficult. And, I believe in openness and transparency in government, but complying with the open meeting laws is a massive administrative problem for purely untrained volunteer organizations. And we're extremely lucky because we have some really smart, well-educated people who can do this sort of work, but it's too difficult. It's not too difficult. It's very difficult, and maybe unnecessarily difficult to do this kind of volunteer work.
Again, Weston votes off the floor during their annual town meeting, which will start at 9 a.m. on Tuesday, March 5th. Voting for the Taconic and Green school budget and board members and the presidential primary will be voted on by Australian ballot, also at the Walker Farm, and the polls will be opened there from 8 a.m. to 7 p.m. For the GNAT-TV News Project, I'm Andrew McKeever.